this computer.
Do it. Is my video coming across okay?
Not sure. Hello, hello, hello. There are a few more people coming in. And then we will get started here. So Barb, before you take off, do you want to get us started real quick? Here.
Sure, Thera, absolutely. Sorry, it took me a second to get to my microphone. I'm on two different devices here, so I'll edit this out, not to worry. Thank you everyone for coming tonight and attending the Culturally Responsive Knowledge Cafe. This is session 6 in the series of 8 during the school year, but then there are a couple more that we'll have over the summer as well. So you're in for a treat tonight. For those of you who don't know my dear friend, Dr. Thera Tilmon yet, not to worry. She is she's a wonderful resource. You just will learn so much from tonight to be able to get to know her passion for education, her experience, her knowledge, her wonderfulness, and her ability to be able to really communicate with you about engaging students in the classroom, certainly in an equitable way. So Thera, we're so happy that you're here. So that's our whole purpose this year, is to help you as an educator figure out ways to either reflect on what you're doing already or to take some next steps in your own development about making sure that your classroom culture is equity-based in early childhood and elementary ed and learning environments. So after tonight, you will get a copy of this slide deck. You'll also get a copy of this recording as well. Give us a few days so that we can render the video. It takes a little while for that to happen in the system. But not to worry, we're good for it. We promise to send that to you. So that's me. I'm Barb Grooms, the Senior Teacher Development Coach here in the Ed Prep Department. Going left to right, Sean Reddy is there. He's our Associate Director. Alejandra Sandoval Martinez is another colleague of mine. She is another Teacher Development Coach, as well as Leslie Delgado, who is our Department Coordinator. And my wonderful Thera is, a on again, off again coach for us in our department, depending on what the term looks like. So we're thrilled to have you here, and I don't want to delay all this wonderful knowledge that Thera is going to be sharing with you in the next few minutes. Okay, Dr. T?
I got you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for being here.
Okay, so culture responsive engagement, that's what we're talking about. And I want to just dive in because we have so much to cover, because I always kind of overplan, if you know me. So, engaged students are motivated students. Motivated students learn and grow, right? Which is kind of what we all want, I'm hoping. So we have some interactivity today. So if you want to join us in the interactive part of this presentation, you can sign into classpoint.app. You can do this on any app, your computer or phone, whatever. You'll be able to see the presentation in that app. So if you want to participate, once you go to classpoint.app, then you just type in the code, which is CRE17. It's on the top of the screen here too. And let me see, I can put this in chat too. So I hope you join me for the interactivity. And classpoint.app. Okay, so we have about 4 people in. I do encourage you, but you can sign in at any time. So it's classpoint.app CRE17. Looks like we're getting in. Cool. So we'll go ahead and keep going, but you can still sign in. That's fine. All right, so here's our agenda. So first we're going to talk about what is engagement and then what is disengagement. It's really important to know those two. Why do we care? How do we plan for it? How can we tell if students are really engaged? If you've ever been coached by me, I ask that question a lot. Like, are your students engaged, and how do you know? I put that on every single reflection on videos. And then we'll talk about some final comments on engagement. Are we good? Thumbs up. We're ready? All right, great. So first question is, what is engagement? So if you could add, if you are signed into ClassPoint, a short answer. Hopefully that comes up on your screen. I'm going to hide it for a minute. And answer what for you, how would you define engagement in a couple of words? Hopefully you guys are seeing that, right? So what is engagement to you? I'll give you a minute or two. So again, we're in classpoint.app. And the code is CRE17. That's up here on the screen. So how would you define engagement in a couple of words? This app is really cool. It's kind of like a Kahoot or Padlet and all that. Excuse my dog. He's not behaving. Oh, goodness. All right, let's see what we've got. That was about 1 minute. So when someone is actively interested in something, I like that. When students are focused on a topic, I like the word focus. Actively involved, that's very cool because I do believe it's an action, right? Actively participating in their learning. Ooh, that's a good one. Activating learning, paying attention, participating in discussions. Love that. When students are interested, that is so important and eager to learn. They are focused. Oh, thank you, whoever put that in. Curiosity and interest. Anyone want to speak to their, come off mic and speak to their answer? When students show curiosity, that's fantastic. Wanting to participate. Nice. These are really, really good. We'll go a couple more minutes and then we'll move on. So this is a pretty cool app, isn't it? What's really cool about this is you can then save it as a slide if you want to. So these are wonderful. And I think I will do that. So I'm going to insert this as a slide. So we have it for when you guys get a copy of this. Some of your responses. And then I close it, right? Yeah. Okay, sorry. Awesome. Thank you, guys. So those are all your answers. And come on, keep going. All right. So here's the etymology. I always like to look at a word in terms of where it comes from. So the word engage can be a verb or a noun. In verb, it means to pledge in something. Its original origin of the word. Or it means as a noun to attract and occupy the attention of something. And meant, once you add that suffix, right, means the act of doing something. So I kind of think about the word engagement as meaning the act of attracting and occupying the attention of. Attracting and occupying. I think those are really interesting words. Let's go a little bit deeper. Let's talk about classroom engagement. So what does that look like in a classroom? So in the classroom, it's about the energy and effort that the students employ in that learning experience. I think someone said that, like bringing that actively participating in the class, and that takes energy, right? So it's students giving energy, giving effort toward what's happening in the classroom. They're not just doing stuff, but they're putting energy toward it. Would you guys agree? Like thumbs up on that? Then there's kind of two different ways to think about it. Sometimes we look at engagement in terms of their behaviors, what they're actually doing. Thank you for the thumbs up. Sometimes it's their emotions. It's an emotional kind of thing. Sometimes it's their thoughts, right? And they're engaging in an intellectual way. And then that's the other one. Intellect. This is really powerful for teachers if we think about this. Is their intellectual response to the challenge? Just think about that. Is their intellectual response to the challenge of the material? So guess what? If there's no challenge in the material, chances are really good they're not going to be engaged. Make sense? Hopefully. So here, I have a question for you. We'll have another multiple choice. You can choose as many as you want. Which of these pictures to you shows engagement? Again, if you want to be part of our interactivity, you want to go to classpoint.app and the code is CRE17. So multiple choice, you can pick as many as you want. Which one of these indicate or show you engagement? I'll open the app and then we'll close it for a minute. So again, we're in classpoint.app and the code CRE17. What do you guys think? A, B, C, D, E, or F? Or more than one? Which of these students, combination of students, looks engaged? Unfortunately, we can't hear their conversation, but we can make some assumptions that they're actually on task. We'll hope. Okay, let's see what we have. We're going to go 1 minute and then see what we have. 12 responses. Very cool. All right, so it looks like we have a lot of, B is the most popular, it looks like, with 13 responses. Almost everyone said B, which is this picture here, right? 11 is the next most popular for C and F. Did anyone select all 6? Thumbs up.
So I wanted to, but I didn't know what the background was for D, because I was like, maybe he's pondering, maybe he's thinking. So I
Absolutely.
didn't submit it because I wasn't sure.
That is definitely the tricky one, right? So I do agree that all of these could definitely show engagement. But like I said, we don't know what their conversation is. But if we look at A, we see these kids are probably working together. At least these two seem to be talking to each other. So for me, I see a social engagement, right? I see a physical engagement because the girl in the middle is writing. So she's doing something physically. So that's what I'm kind of seeing from that picture. And hopefully there's a cognitive engagement going in there too, because we really want cognitive engagement. We really want the brain working, right? In B, we definitely see engagement in this group. We see social engagement. I think we see some emotional engagement. We see a smile here, a smile here. We see some questioning. That's also engagement, right? Emotional engagement. There's social engagement going on. C, definitely, right? Like there's no doubt. They're actually physically doing something. So we see physical engagement. We see emotional engagement. Look at the joy. I love looking at joy, right? Physically doing something, emotionally they're involved. They're probably socially involved. Lots of engagement going on here. In D, we are hoping that's what's happening here is cognitive engagement, right? That's what we're kind of hoping is happening here. And we can find out by asking a question, right? So if you're the teacher, you can walk by and ask him a question, and I'll kind of reveal to you whether he was actually thinking about the task. And E, he is definitely doing something. He's looking at the book and he's taking notes. So there's a physical engagement, hopefully a cognitive engagement. And here in F, definitely a physical engagement, right? They're up and they're moving. We're going to assume that there's a cognitive engagement by the question that hopefully the teacher asked. So hopefully asked a question that is sparking some conversation and they're having to think about it. Make sense? Okay. So next question. Here's the next question. What are certain, why is that not working? Sorry. Oh, sorry. What are some types of engagements? What do you guys think? What are some types of engagement? We kind of talked about a few in those pictures, but how would you define the different types? Because there's lots of different types. Like again, I mentioned a couple. Couple hints. What are some types of engagement that you've seen in your practice? If you're a student teacher, that you've seen from your mentor teacher, if you're a current teacher, what are some types of engagement you look for in your classroom? Or if you're none of those, what have you experienced in a classroom? What are some different types? What do you think? Try to go to a minute or so. Some types of engagement. All right, so far we have turn and talk. Actually, I love that, which is an engaging activity, so that would spark social engagement. You think? Oh, I meant to block your name. Sorry, guys. Social, emotional, definitely. Those are different types of engagement. Emotional, physical, cognitive, physical, nice. Interactive activities like groups, that kind of promotes that social engagement, right? Technology, that's a cool one. Behavior, investigating, exploring, questioning, these are great. Small group collaboration. These are definitely examples of different types of engagement. So thank you for that. We will move on. Thank you for sharing what you know. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at this another way. These are kind of the 5 key areas. You guys pointed out some more that I probably need to add, like that technical engagement I think was cool. So physical engagement, we know that's when we see movement, right? That's actually kids moving, doing something physical. Emotional engagement is how I like to say is joy. Even though you can have emotional engagement that's not joy, right? You can have fear if you're reading something scary, right? You can show that on your face. So any kind of emotional response is still engagement, emotional engagement, but I prefer joy. That's my thing, right? Cognitive engagement is really interesting because, again, that's when you're responding to a challenge, right? Which is what we want our kids to expand, use their brain, grow their brain to respond to a challenge. Social engagement, that's where those connections happen, right? Between teacher and student, between students and students. That engagement is really important to learning. And one of the most important ones, in my opinion, is authentic engagement. And that's when students are bringing themselves to the learning process voluntarily. And they are learning in the way that they want to learn. So they are engaging in an authentic way. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. So authentic engagement is when students choose to bring themselves to the learning. The school bus brings them to school, they come into your class, but then at that point, they decide. They have a choice. They have a choice to bring them their whole selves to the learning or not, right? And everything we do in the classroom as teachers, everything's an invitation. So the way that we set up our classrooms, the way that we greet them at the door, the way that we spark curiosity, all those things are an invitation like, do you want to come? Do you want to do this learning? And we have to recognize that it's a choice that kids actively make because engaging is an action. And here's one of the things that I think is really important to think about. Sometimes what we do as teachers is we set out an activity. We say, okay, engage in this, and I want to tell you how to engage in this. And we call that engaging students. But many times we're making the student passive, right? We're saying, oh, this is engaging book, so we're going to engage in this way. But authentic engagement is when we as teachers have set up an environment that invites students to engage. The conditions are right. This is what we do very well in preschool. So think about the kitchen, the play kitchen in a preschool, right? We don't tell a 3-year-old, go to the play kitchen and take out a pot and pretend to make muffins. No, we send the kids to the play kitchen. They choose to go, right? And then while they're there, they're doing what they're doing. Some kids are doing dishes. Some kids are cooking. Some kids are standing there with the play refrigerator opening and closing the door, right? We don't tell them how to engage. And so that's authentic engagement, which is tough because the older they get, the less we allow that. The older they get, the more we tell them, this is how I want you to engage. So just thinking about that, because we want to make our conditions for students to want to engage. Put the material out, let them engage. Make sense? Questions, concerns? She crazy? Okay. Oh, and then what you want to do, in order to do this, you need to identify the barriers. One barrier to this condition for engagement is physical discomfort. And I think about this because when I was a kid and they'd say, come to the carpet and sit crisscross applesauce, I am like all legs. That was very uncomfortable for me. So I was not engaging in activities because I was sitting there figuring out how I could not be in pain, right? Like, how is this not going to hurt? So we have to think about that when we're telling kids how to engage. Remove the barriers. Sometimes they're physical, sometimes they're emotional, right? Sometimes we have no connection or relationship with them until there's a barrier there. So they're not feeling like there's a condition to engage, right? Sometimes they're afraid. So we have to identify what those barriers are that are preventing our students from engaging. Instead of saying, that student never pays attention. Instead, we might be saying, what conditions have I set to block that student from? What barriers have I put out to block that student from engaging? Make sense? Hopefully. Okay. So systematic engagement is another way of thinking about this. And this is the systems that we teach in. So this is a really great quote. Underperformance is not a lack of ability. Underperformance is not a lack of ability. So this whole thing about the achievement gap, quote unquote, isn't true. It's not about ability. It's about a system that does not allow students to engage the way they want to. The older they get, the less we allow them to engage the way they want to, right? We tell them, read this text, answer these questions, or whatever it is. So it's a system that isn't prepared to invite kids in. I know you're like, oh man, I'm getting all depressed. Okay, so really quickly, answer this question. What is disengagement? So we kind of talked about engagement. What is engagement? Let's talk about what is disengagement. How would you define that? Again, we're on this ClassPoint app. Barriers, disengagement, definitely. Barriers definitely lead to disengagement, right? Anybody else? Oh my gosh, boredom, apathy, definitely. Low attendance. Ooh, that's a good one. Uninterested, not focused. Isolation, that's a good one too. Not focused, withdrawing. Okay. Yeah, these are good. When you just don't incorporate all students to activities, yes. And so you create that disengagement, not interested in activities. Very good. Thanks, guys. Thank you for those submissions. I agree with all of them. So here's the thing about disengagement. Remember how engagement is an action? Disengagement is also an action. I think somebody put that withdrawing. It's an action of withdrawing. They're making that choice to withdraw from the activity. Sometimes it's obvious, right? Sometimes they are literally sleeping. So that's kind of a sign that there's disengagement. Sometimes they're disrupting others, right? Or they're playing on their device underneath the desk. I don't know if that's ever happened in your classrooms, but it used to happen in mine. So at times they're just, we can tell. But there's a lot of times when disengagement is not obvious. When students are totally compliant, like these kids here, right? They're sitting quietly. This kid even has his hands folded in front of him, right? His mom would walk by and go, look at my son. He's so well behaved, right? But that does not mean he's engaged. Some kids will nod in agreement. Does not mean they are cognitively engaged, right? Because some kids know how to play school. They know how to be quiet. They know how to even pretend to take notes. Sometimes they take notes. They know how to smile and nod, but this is an illusion, or it can be. When students appear diligent, and a lot of times we ignore this student because we're thinking, oh, they're so on task and they're so well behaved, but does that mean they're really engaged? So a lesson that fails to make the connection to the students' lives, even your best students, your most compliant students, I should say, can sink into that sea of boredom and distraction, right? Even without showing it. So we have to think about that. Students disengage when classrooms are disengaging. So think about that, reflect on that, right? That there's this engagement illusion. So I want to talk really quickly about some myths. One myth is what I'm interested in, students will be interested in. Not true, right? What we need to do as teachers is form those strong relationships with our students, listen to what's happening, listen to the conversations in the hallway as they're walking to and from school, find out who they are, What are they spontaneously talking about, right? We need to get to know them. A good example of this is a teacher I worked with that was of Japanese descent, and first day of school, she had decorated her whole classroom with her culture. It was beautiful. She had the lanterns, she had pictures of Japan all over. And I said to her, and this is in a school that in Milwaukee that was 99% Black. And I said to her, where are the students? Where is their work going to go? Where is their representation? It's wonderful to expose them to your culture, but we need to choose them first. So we need to choose our kids before they choose us. Does that make sense? We need to be invested in their interest before we can ask them to be interested in us. It's just the way it works. It may not seem fair, but it's just the way it works. Couple words of caution when you're thinking about this. Please do not, or be careful of typecasting students. So that student that's always playing baseball at recess, that talks about baseball a lot, he plays on a traveling team, he's not good at baseball, doesn't mean that's all he's into, right? So like every writing assignment, you don't have to say, oh, why don't you write about baseball? Okay, because they probably have other interests too. So we don't want to typecast them. We want to learn about the whole student. And also be very careful when it comes to students understanding who students are with making assumptions. My dad, for instance, was first chair clarinet in the Lake Forest Symphony. So I grew up as a Black girl loving Beethoven and Mozart. That is not something that people would assume when they saw me, right? That I would like classical music. I also was in love with Michael Jackson, but that's a different story, right? So we don't want to make assumptions about kids. Another illusion is that compliance equals engagement, which we already talked about, right? It doesn't always equal that. So one way around this, besides removing the barriers, is ensure that everybody's talking, because that's how you can tell if engagement is happening. So all voices are heard continuously throughout the day. And when we say voices are heard, we're also talking about different languages, different modalities. Some children want to be heard through the art that they draw. Some kids want to be heard through their writing. Some kids want to be heard in their native language. So we're exposing kids and we're listening to kids all day. We're using engagement checks. Turn and talk is fantastic. Now everybody's voices are heard. Now we know they're not just compliant, they're also engaging. Does that make sense? I know I'm talking fast, but I have so much to cover. All right, thanks, Vanessa. Okay, another one is that students learn for the sake of learning. Not necessarily. You do have a couple of those kids out there that just learn, they just teach me something, right? But most kids need relevance, right? They need to not just rely on, oh, the teacher is teaching this. They need to know why. They need to know how that connects to their lives. They need to know what's in this for me. So take the time, you guys are, a lot of you are pros and you know this. The beginning of a unit, you open dialogue, you uncover those misconceptions, right? You find out what their interests are. They don't necessarily learn for the sake of learning. Okay, another one is that there's one clear path to learning. I think you guys probably all know that. There's no one way to teaching and learning. You have to be flexible. Make sense? That's what I think we all know. This is a kind of one that, I'm sorry if I hurt your feelings, but it's an illusion that you have the right to teach. The state of Illinois gives you a certificate that says you have the authority to teach. But the right to teach is by consent, and it comes from your students. So just think about that. We teach by consent, because we can only teach if they're engaged, right? And engagement is a choice. So we need to understand that we need to gain the consent of our students to create that engagement and learning. It's a choice. So how do we do that? We check our bias. We check our hidden and explicit bias. We do the work to truly see our students, truly hear them and know them. See them for their brilliance, because they're all brilliant, right? And then provide that platform for them to be great. Another part of that in getting that consent is being your authentic self, which I think is so powerful. You know, they can see you right through you if you're being fake. And you want to be that person that's modeling creativity, uniqueness, innovation, right? You want to be willing to take risk in your teaching for your students. Hopefully that makes sense. But if every day you go into your classroom and you remember, I teach by consent. It changes the way that you teach. Make sense? Any comments? So engagement is as far as teachers concerned, is creating the conditions, right? Making those connections. So I'm at the halfway mark, so I want to keep going. Oh, really quickly, why should we care? Because this is powerful. Students' brains are designed to ignore most of what's going on in your classroom. When I first read that, I was like, what? All of us have this ability, all human beings, to disregard the stimuli in our environment that's not important to us. So think about a time when you're reading a book and you're so invested in that book that you don't hear your kids calling you. Has it happened to anyone before? Like you're so focused on a task that you don't hear anything around you. That's that stimuli, and kids have this ability. They're born with it. So they can sort through all that stuff that's going on and they can choose what to pay attention to. So that's really important to think about. So it's the choices that we make that give them that opportunity to concentrate on what we want them to concentrate on. To not look at the squirrel in the tree outside. But the squirrel in the tree outside is more interesting than your lesson? Think about this. When we are not mentally present, and we are not engaged, then what children do, what all of us do, is we play a playlist in our mind, me and my problems, right? So when that student is not invested, they're not giving mental engagement into your math lesson, they're thinking about, I hope my mom doesn't find out that I didn't take out the garbage, right? They're thinking about me and my problems and they're playing that playlist. So what we have to do is we want to make sure that the voices in their heads are supporting the lesson, not interrupting or blocking it. Because we have the ability to do this. All human beings do. But here's the good news. We also have brains that are wired to be curious. So we can disrupt that, right? We can learn as teachers how to spark student curiosity. We can learn how to make things cognitively challenging. We can learn how to provide personal connections, and we can spark that curiosity so they want to learn. So they don't block out us, they block out everything else. Does that make sense? When I first read that, I was like, what? Okay, so planning for engagement. Everything we do is an invitation. So the first thing, this is the menu, this is the recipe. The first thing you need to have an engaging classroom is cognitive challenge, right? The material that you put out needs to be cognitively challenging. This is what we tend to do with students that we call low, according to Zretta Hammond. We tend to scaffold away the curiosity. We scaffold the complexity out. And the complexity is what actually ignites their brain. So you have a fifth grader who's reading at a second grade level, according to some standardized test. And we go down to the second grade teacher, right? We grab some books that are second grade and we present them to this fifth grader. They are not complex. They are not age appropriate. They're not exciting. They're probably not even relevant. This student is shutting down. And what we should be doing is keeping the fifth grade text that is complex and scaffolding them up, right? Offering them to support to be able to process that fifth grade book instead of scaffolding them down. Because when we scaffold them down, we take out the complexity, their brain's like, forget it. Our brain loves curiosity. Our brain loves puzzles. Students like to be challenged. We just have to find that balance between what is too easy and boring or not complex and what's too challenging so it creates anxiety. So we have to find that balance in between. So really important. So cognitive challenge has to be there, but it's not enough. That's just step one, okay? Now we're going to add to that menu motivation. So kids need these cognitive interest cues. We need to spark that curiosity, right? Curiosity leads to wondering and motivation. Make sense? Emotional engagement sparks the brain. This is actually from brain research. That when kids are curious, their neurons in their brain open up and what they learn is able to stick. So motivation plus cognitive challenge. Guess what? That's not enough. There's one more thing. It needs to be culturally relevant. It needs to be motivating. It needs to be cognitively challenging, and it needs to be culturally relevant. That's about tapping into that schema, to the funds of knowledge, right? It's integrating new knowledge with our existing knowledge. It really opens up that engagement. So students need all three, right? Like this is it. Seems like tough. It seems like a tough thing, but we can do it, right? So this is what you need for engagement. So you can't just be culturally relevant, because that's cool if you have a bunch of books in your library about Black people and you have Black kids in your class, but you can't stop there, right? Those books need to be cognitively challenging. Like the lesson that you're using that book for needs to be cognitively challenging, and the motivation to do it needs to be there too. So those three pieces have to be together. Any comments, questions, concerns? You feel like I'm yelling at you? I get excited. This is kind of my passion. Okay, but I don't want to run out of time. So this is really quickly from Zaretta Hammond. She talks about this intellectual curiosity and engagement, but here she talks about this cognitive capacity building. This is what our job is. We can't just give them hands-on activity, right? Can't just make it fun and interactive. It also needs to be sparking that brain, tapping the brain so that true learning happens. Okay? All right, so here's some more things about research, and I'll try to go through these quickly. Student engagement is just as important as teacher quality. So you can be the best teacher in the world, but if your students aren't engaged, then it's for nothing, right? This is powerful. Students' motivation translates to increased effort. Effort overcomes ability. This is key. Effort overcomes ability. So it makes me think about my brother who wanted to be an airline pilot his entire life. He actually became a captain for American. And anything about airplanes, he would read it, because effort overcame his abilities. It didn't matter what the reading level was. See, in third grade, reading a high school book, if it was about airplanes, he was going to figure it out. So when you're giving effort to something, it overcomes whatever your ability or your barriers are, because you're giving effort. Curiosity supports engagement, right? We talked about that. Just some really quick ones. So research also shows that emotional engagement, how students feel, is important. So we want to affirm and uplift students. We want to connect to their families. We want to create student-centered classrooms, lots of conversation. We want to get rid of those labels and prejudices, and we want to start every single day as an asset-based, fresh new day. I don't care if you turned the table over yesterday. Today is a new, fresh new day every day. Make sense? I had a student that used to turn tables over, just so you know, that's where that example came from. All right. A little bit more on brain research. So students that are emotionally safe in a relationship-based classroom, it actually stimulates their brain. Emotionally safe, relationship-based, cognitively stimulating environments contributes to brain development. This is what we want, right? Right? Learning environments that privilege relationships, this is powerful, can offset stress and trauma. Relationships. Environments that are cognitively, emotional, and socially engaging, engage in set up an environment where kids are equipped to learn. Does that make sense? Hopefully. I know I'm talking to you, but I wanted to get to this. So strategies, what are we going to do? How are we going to make this happen? So strategies to create and maintain engagement. So there's two things we need. First, we need the spark. First, we need to deliver the invitation, right? We need to spark their interest and curiosity. We want what I used to call the wait, what? So when the students come in from recess and they're all talking about stuff and you say something or you pose a question or you play a video and the students say, wait, what? Wait, what did she say? That's that spark. This little boy probably doesn't have the language for that, but you can tell, right? In this picture here, he's like, wait, what? I'm curious. I've got a spark. I'm interested. But then once we get that, then we need to solidify that commitment. We need to sustain that energy. So we need to go from wait, what? To let's do this. Right? So wait, what? Did Ms. Tilmon just say that we were going to combine two chemicals to see what happens? Wait, what? Okay, let's do this. You guys got me? We're moving from the spark to the flame, and you got to have both. Make sense? So really quickly, here's some ideas on how to get that spark, and I'm going to ask you for your contributions here in a minute. We want to, first thing you got to do is create the environment. first couple of weeks of school. You old teachers who've been teaching for a long time, you know this, right? You start by creating that environment of safety. You normalize mistakes. So people can take risks. Students can take risks because mistakes are normal in your classroom. The teacher makes them too. You have this environment with productive praise, constructive corrections. This is a positive place. And you pre-correct, which means you say in the beginning what your expectations are. Instead of waiting for students to do something, you're like, hey, don't do that, right? You're setting them up for success. So you're creating this environment for engagement. I'm going to skip that. It's a good one, though. It'll be on your PowerPoint. A couple other things. Now, once you've had that environment, then you want to send the invitation. How do you send the invitation? You can do things by presenting a cognitive challenge, teaching with themes that kids are interested in, using curiosity hooks, right? Like, hey, why is it that when we divide, the number gets larger? What? So giving those kind of puzzles and those challenges, offering those cognitive interest cues, posing questions, right? These are some of the ways that we send the invitation and invite kids in and get the spark. This is how we can get the wait what. Make sense? So what I want you guys to do is you're going to analyze a strategy that you use or that you have seen used if you're not a teacher yet, or that you experienced as a student yourself, and see if it has the MCR. Is it motivating, culturally, cognitively challenging, and relevant? This is just an example. All right. So I wanted to hear from you guys, give you time to think about this. So think about some strategies that you use. Think about one strategy that you've used in your classroom or that you have seen used to spark interest. And then ask yourself, is it MCR? Is it motivating? Is it cognitively challenging? And is it relevant? Cool? Let's see what we can get. I'll open this. So yeah, I know you guys use all kinds of different strategies, so I'll do that in private here for a second. So what are some ideas for gaining student interest and getting that spark? What have you guys done in your classrooms? And then the tough part is you need to kind of analyze it. If you can't get into class point, right, for some reason, you can also go into the chat if you want. Anybody? Or if you just want to come off your mic, you can share a strategy for sparking that engagement. Okay, looks like we have one response so far. I try to use a bell ringer to create interest. Absolutely, that's a great one. Use a picture or video as a hook. Very good. Any kind of hook, right? To get them to say, wait, what? That's like my favorite. All right, those are some ideas. And then I guess we have to think about these bell ringers, making sure that they are motivating and cognitively challenging, right? So we're offering that cognitive challenge too. So those can be great when they kind of cover all three of those, especially if they're culturally relevant. So many times I find teachers have to model excitement about something so they want to know, oh, that's interesting too. Yeah, I've noticed that too. It's like, so if you're in the kitchen and you start saying, oh, this is so cool what you're doing, you'll notice other kids are coming from the other areas, right? And they want to come see what's happening. So that is a good one to get that interest. Read novels, culturally appropriate, always have students try to make real life connections. Excellent, that's a hook. Created heritage posters. They are motivated by being able to display parents. Yes. And then it's in your classroom. So very relevant. These are really good, guys. All right, let's keep going. All right. Now we've got the spark. Now we got to work on the flame. So how do we maintain them? Here's some strategies. Amplify student voice, right? If you're doing more talking to the kids, then they're not engaged. They should be doing the talking. Give them the mic and give them time to process. Right? Create this community of difference. This is so important, where every student is distinctive and irreplaceable. It's like, what do you mean you're not going to be here tomorrow? If you're not here, you're not bringing our class this. You're not bringing your part. No one can give what you can give. That's how our students should feel in our classrooms. Everybody is different and special and irreplaceable. right? When you create that kind of community, not this community of we're all alike, but this community of we're all different, and it's so cool, right? You want to plan for this productive struggle. Remember, kids like puzzles. They like challenge. Our brains are wired for that. So give them that productive struggle, which means it's just hard enough to challenge them, but definitely reachable. Make sense? Deepen your relationships, collaborative projects. You shouldn't be talking, let them talk. Help students develop and maintain their positive habits of mind, uphold their dignity. When I say that, and like we're not doing the sticker charts, right? We're not doing the clips, move the clip up and down. That just humiliates children. We're upholding their dignity. We're making sure they're seen and heard and validated all the time. This helps us to promote that will that they're going to continue once we got the spark. Personalize your objectives. This is a big one too. Sometimes you do have to provide a brain break, right? So they're invested, but they're getting tired. So sometimes you have to stop for a minute. Let's do something fun, or let's do something that's not necessarily cognitively challenging, and then we'll come back. Sometimes you need that to kind of keep that, maintain that joy. Make sense? I'm trying to maintain the flame. A couple other things really quick. This is cool. Create future pacing experiences. Build their anticipation. Like, hey guys, after we master this, we're going to do this. Like, this is going to be the precursor for this other thing that we're going to do. This is so exciting. Or no, next year you're going to be in first grade. And so you're going to go to first grade knowing your letters and your sounds. This is cool, right? So we're going to define for them what's in it for me. We got to always define that for our kids, and that future pacing. This is what's in it for you. This is how it's going to help you in your life. This is how it's going to help your community, your family. This is why this lesson is important, right? Classroom rituals are really good too. They help to maintain that focus. When we have those classroom rituals and traditions that are unique to your classroom that the kids kind of invent, so they predict it. I've seen things like students will do 3 snaps when someone tries, right? Those little rituals that you do are very impactful. Empower students to think beyond their comfort zone. And the one way to do this is to model it yourself. And tell kids, you know what? I want to try some. I have not tried this before. I want to see if this works. Are you guys with me? And they'll always say yes, usually, if you have a relationship with them. Teach, model, and practice thinking strategies. Now, these could all be separate PDs, right? We could go down a rabbit hole with each one of those, but there's a ton. So let's do this. This is a bunch of others that you'll get this PowerPoint. Utilizing music, direct instruction of vocabulary, keeping students' voice. All these things are important, but I want to hear from you. So again, let's do this MCR. So when you've got them hooked, right? And sorry, you've got the spark. Yeah.
What about the students creating the anchor charts depending on what standard we're on that day?
That's fantastic.
They
right?
love doing that because once you post them, they're all excited, like their group are the one who, presented that.
Right. So definitely add that to our discussion. I think that's awesome. So anytime you have the kids doing it, but you have to let up some control, right? Because it's going to be in the kids' handwriting.
Yes.
You'll be like, oh man, that's
so you pick a person in that group who has great handwriting.
Well,
and so there you go.
Well, sometimes we get too hung up on that, right? Like, it's okay if it's not straight. The kids can figure it out. So anybody else have some ideas of how do you maintain that flame? You've got the spark. What can you do to maintain it? Sustain them through a whole lesson. A little bit easier with little ones because our lessons tend to be very short. But 5th grade, 6th grade, 90-minute reading block. How do you keep that spark going or keep that flame going? Anybody? Or in the interest of time, you can just come off mic or come off mute. One person. Okay, let's see what this one's. Oh, there's a few. Team collab. Oh, I love this. Presentations where they choose. See, that's that autonomy, right? So they're choosing how to present it. I love that. We're not telling them how to engage. Cool. Ask students what they're looking for and what they would like to see or interest them. Ooh, that sounds like it's relevant, right? Sounds like it's motivating. Allow students to take the lead on where the lesson is going. Beautiful. Again, we're giving them that autonomy. I love these ideas. These are really good. This takes some planning on your part, right? And it takes you getting out of the way.
Well, in that preschool, you kind of, sometimes it's the best decision because if I want to talk, if my lesson is wanting to talk about something specific and they're all excited about the bug that's in the classroom, I might as well go with the bug in the classroom because that's going to win.
Absolutely. Because they have just decided that they're going to put their energy toward that bug. So let's make it a lesson, right? I love that. I love that. Love that. Okay, cool. Thank you guys for sharing. We're almost out of time. So really quickly, how do we know? Especially because sometimes it's an illusion, right? So here's a couple strategies for how you can know if students are engaged. Consider who is talking. The students or you. The more the students are talking, the more engaged they are. Are your students taking risk? Or are they playing it safe? That's a sign of engagement. Are they trying stuff? Are they asking questions? I guarantee you, if they're asking you a question, they're engaged in the activity, especially if it's a question about the lesson. And so sometimes even that student that shouts out and you might be bothered by that, a lot of times that's a sign of engagement. They got something to say. They've got something to ask. And we tend to shush them instead of going with that and saying, wait, what was that question? And responding to their questions. Are all voices in your classroom being heard? It's another way to tell if your kids are engaged. Is everybody talking or communicating in some way? Whether they're drawing or acting something out, or are they being heard? Are they expressing excitement, curiosity, and joy? There's that bug, right? So they're showing this curiosity toward that bug in the classroom. They are engaged. So let's not rob them of that. Let's go with it. This is a good one, especially with older kids. Are they challenging the teacher? This is when you know you've got a great classroom, when they feel safe enough to say, I don't agree with you. Or I'm not sure about that. Can you prove that to me? That's when you know you've got a great classroom, because they feel safe enough to challenge the teacher. Now you've got kids who are engaged. Are they exploring the materials in the classroom, right? What's their body language tell you? Are they making personal connections themselves? Are you hearing them say, this reminds me of that time I went bowling with my grandfather, right? Are they making those connections? That's powerful. That means they're really engaged. Are they collaborating with their peers? And are they reflecting on their learning? This is really cool. Are they reflecting on their learning without being asked? So are your kids lining up and putting their backpacks on and saying to each other, man, that was really cool how we did that one science experiment. I learned a lot of stuff. Now they're reflecting on what they learned and you didn't even ask them to, then you know they're engaged. Make sense? Hopefully. So to wrap this up, excuse me, engagement equals these three things, right? Motivation, cognition, and relevancy. And so you want to ask yourself, and everything that you're doing in your classroom, are you meeting these three? Because it's not enough to just have one. Not if we're trying to grow learners, right? And take them to the next level of their thinking. Sometimes I like to say, if you've been in my classes, you've heard me say this about low floor, high ceiling activities. Low floor means everybody has access, everybody can enter the conversation or the project or whatever, but there's no limit to how far they can go, right? So that cognitive challenge has no limit. So some kids are going and going and going, some kids are stopping, but that's okay. They all are there. They're all using their brain, they're all growing, right? So you have a question about the characters in a story. Some students are going to go low floor. They're going to be able to tell you the names of the characters. Some students are going to go from there and say, yeah, and that character is really smart. I know that because, right? So if we put limits on them, then we stop that growth. We stop that cognitive challenge. But if that's there and all kids are there and low floor, high ceiling, everybody has access and there's no limit to where they can go. Make sense? All right, good. So here's some of the references, and you'll get a copy of this PowerPoint that I used and that I've just read that I think are really powerful. Like this whole book on the authentic engagement is really good. Power for Student Choice, Student Care rather, is a really powerful book on how we really create this environment where every kid is irreplaceable. This book, Anti-Racist English Language Arts Classroom, is by Keisha Rembert, who is a professor here at NLU. It's a fantastic book with lots of very specific strategies. Cultivating Genius is a wonderful book by Goldie Muhammad. Every kid in your classroom is a genius, and this is the way you can cultivate that. Quantum Teaching is an old book that some of you guys might be familiar with, but it's really packed with a lot of cool stuff. And the hip hop mindset, I haven't finished it, but it's really, really good in thinking about how a lot of our young people think. And a lot of young people have this hip hop mindset, which is very powerful. So that's just some of the sources that I used. So thank you very much. 6:57. So let's get engaged. Any final questions, concerns for me? You know, anything going on you want to talk about? I know I need to send out that's me. So if you need to contact me, that's me. And this is our culture responsive schedule. So this will be sent to you. And I'm about to put, if I find it again, Barb gave it to me, the exit ticket for you, because I think you need that in order to get your CPDUs. So let me stop sharing for a minute so I can figure out what I'm doing. Okay. All right, let's see. Most of our teacher prep team is at a conference, which is why I'm on my own here. Okay. So let me put the exit ticket in chat.
Excuse me.
Uh-huh.
Hi. Is it possible I can get my email because I don't have a chat option this time for some reason, so I couldn't answer any of the questions.
I don't have one either.
Me too.
I don't either.
That's
Yeah,
probably
me
why you
too.
didn't get a lot of responses. We don't have chat options.
Yeah,
Look at the icon and I don't have.
That's
yeah,
weird.
me too.
Yes, me too.
Okay, my goodness. I'm thinking, did you guys all register? Like, do we have your email already?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll make
Yes, I am taking the class with you.
Yes.
Okay.
How are you?
Stephanie Guzman.
Yes, I see. So if we already have your emails, I'm pretty sure that Barb sends out all that information to you. Because I don't even know any other way to. Oh, okay. Barb just typed in here. Zoom is keeping attendance. Don't worry. Okay, good. We're good. So we'll get you that exit ticket. Thanks, Barb.
Can we also have the contact information sent through email as well?
Oh, sure. Definitely.
Thank you.
It's because I know you get a copy of the PowerPoint too. And I think in the something else and the exit ticket. And you know, if you attend, I forgot how many, a bunch of these, you get some other stuff. But I'm not really sure. But hopefully that was informative. I know it seems rushed because I was trying to get through a lot. But hopefully we at least got you thinking a little bit, especially for our teacher prep, student teachers, kind of thinking about how you're going to incorporate engaging activities in your classroom. That's really the goal.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. It was a really great presentation. Thank you.
Well, thank you for saying that. I appreciate it.
It
Thank
really
you.
was. It was very, very informative.
Okay, good, because I felt like I was talking like.
No, no, you did great. I'm taking nice notes. And you did great.
You keeping me engagement.
I guess
I
I did.
agree. It did keep you engaged.
Awesome.
It
Thank
was
you. I
not
will
dragging
definitely
at
use
all.
the slide point.
Oh yeah, for sure. Because there was a lot of information we didn't get to, so we'll definitely share the slides with you.
Thank you again.
All right, thank you. Ooh, I need a nap. Taylor,
That was fabulous, Dr. Thera. That was great. Thank you so much.
well, thank you for coming. I appreciate it.
Yes, I enjoyed it.
All right, good. Thanks.
Have a good night.
You too.
I wanted to ask another quick question.
Right.
When I signed up, I wanted to make sure this is just not for, this could be for teachers too, correct?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
That was
All right.
what kind of the vision that we had our mentor teachers and experienced teachers and first year teachers and student teachers and just teachers.
All right. Thanks so much.
All right. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Okay, Miss Barb. One thing I was thinking, Barb, is I believe that way I have my Zoom, it records to my computer. So should I just send you the recording after it's finished? I know you're in your class, never mind. All right, cool. All right, so I will see you later.